In 1938, a cartel sat down and decided that diamonds would mean love forever. Then they spent decades making sure you'd believe it. Before that moment, diamonds weren't the universal symbol of engagement. They were rare, yes, but so were rubies. So were sapphires. So were plenty of stones. What made diamonds different wasn't geology. It was a calculated decision to control the narrative around them. And it worked so completely that most people today think the link between diamonds and marriage is ancient tradition, not 20th century marketing. So where did this story actually begin? In South Africa around the turn of the century, diamonds weren't scarce at all. Mining operations were pulling them out of the ground faster than demand could absorb them. Prices were collapsing. Multiple mining companies were competing, undercutting each other, and the entire market was destabilizing. For a commodity to maintain value, supply has to match demand. When supply explodes, value evaporates. Does that problem sound familiar? Cecil Rhodes and his De Beers company saw the solution early: consolidation. If you control the supply, you control the price. De Beers began buying up competing mines, not necessarily to mine them, but to keep them closed. This is artificial scarcity in its purest form. They weren't creating diamonds, they were creating the illusion that diamonds were rarer than they actually were. And crucially, they were creating the perception that this rarity made them valuable. By the 1930s, De Beers controlled roughly 80% of the world's diamond supply. But here's where the real genius begins. Controlling supply only works if demand stays steady. If fewer people want diamonds, your stockpile becomes a liability. So the cartel did something unprecedented. They didn't just sell a product. They manufactured desire itself. They hired N.W Ayer, a major advertising firm, and gave them one directive: make diamonds essential to marriage, not just desirable, essential. The campaign didn't start with buy diamonds. It started with education. Ads explained why diamonds were rare, why they were durable, why they symbolized eternal love. By the 1940s, phrases like "a diamond is forever" were being repeated in magazines, in films, in conversations. The slogan wasn't a description, it was an incantation. The genius wasn't the advertising itself. The genius was who they convinced. They didn't target the wealthy, they targeted the middle class. They made diamonds aspirational, something a working man should save for, something that proved his love. And they made it a social expectation. If you didn't propose with a diamond, what did that say about your commitment? The cartel didn't just create a market, they created a moral obligation, and it worked. In 1938, before the campaign, diamonds accounted for maybe 10% of engagement rings. By the 1950s, it was nearly 80%. Demand skyrocketed without De Beers increasing supply. The cartel could now maintain prices at artificially high levels while selling more volume. It's a feedback loop. High prices signal rarity and value. Rarity and value increase desire. Increased desire justifies high prices. Who predicted this would work? De Beers did. They understood systems, but there's a problem baked into this system from the start. Once you've saturated demand, once nearly every engagement ring has a diamond, what happens next? You need new demand. So De Beers expanded. Diamonds for anniversaries, diamonds for right-hand rings, diamonds as investment pieces. They kept creating new reasons to buy. The cartel understood something critical. Artificial scarcity only works as long as people keep believing in the scarcity, and that belief, once established, became self-reinforcing. Diamonds held their resale value, not because of intrinsic scarcity, but because the perception of value was so deeply embedded in culture. A used diamond ring doesn't resell for anywhere near its retail price, yet people still believe diamonds are investments. Why? Because the narrative is stronger than the data. The cartel's control began to fracture in the 1990s. New diamond sources emerged in Russia, Australia, Canada, places outside De Beers' reach. Lab-grown diamonds became technically feasible. The internet made price transparency possible. Suddenly, the closed information loop that had kept the narrative intact started leaking. People could research, compare, question. The artificial scarcity was no longer airtight. De Beers adapted. They couldn't maintain total control anymore, so they shifted strategy. They began certifying diamonds through organizations like the Gemological Institute of America, creating grading standards. Certification doesn't change the diamond itself, it changes the perception of certainty. A certified diamond feels more real, more trustworthy, more worth the price. The cartel had learned to evolve their control mechanism. Today, the diamond market looks different on the surface. De Beers' market share has dropped to around 30%. Synthetic diamonds exist. The internet has exposed pricing. yet engagement rings are still predominantly diamond. The narrative is still intact. Why? Because narratives, once deeply woven into culture, don't unravel quickly. They persist through inertia, through social expectation, through the fact that everyone around you is still following the same script. This isn't unique to diamonds. The same cartel narrative pattern has played out repeatedly. De Beers also controlled gold and other gemstones. OPEC controls oil prices through supply management. Luxury brands control perceived value through artificial scarcity and marketing. The system works when three conditions hold. You control supply, you control the story, and the story aligns with what people want to believe about themselves. What happens when one of those conditions breaks? Look at the diamond market now. Supply control has eroded. The narrative is questioned by younger generations, yet prices haven't collapsed because the third condition is still strong: cultural expectation. A diamond engagement ring still feels like the right choice because decades of narrative reinforcement made it feel that way. Belief outlasts control. So back to the original question: how did a cartel create artificial scarcity and enduring value? They didn't create it alone. They created the conditions, control of supply, then let culture do the heavy lifting. They manufactured the narrative that diamonds were rare and eternal. But they couldn't have succeeded without the most powerful force in economics: the human desire to believe what serves us emotionally. We wanted diamonds to mean love. The cartel just gave us permission to feel that way. The lesson here isn't about diamonds specifically. It's about how value itself works. Value isn't intrinsic, it's constructed. And once constructed successfully, it becomes nearly invisible. We stop seeing the marketing. We stop noticing the artificial scarcity. We see only the product and feel only the emotion. That's when the system becomes most powerful, when nobody remembers it's a system at all. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. If you want to understand how systems shape what we think is real, hit subscribe. There's a new breakdown of how markets actually work every week. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.